And thank you very much for coming in. I realise it's a difficult time for you, both with the death and with the loss of the contract. Can I first just ask how you understand the definition of legal, necessary and proportionate force that can be used during removals?
Yes, I mean, in terms of legal, obviously our officers are empowered under legislation to use control and restraint techniques when appropriate. So, and that's under the various acts, which is the legal bit. In terms of sort of necessary and proportionate, our whole method of operation is to avoid using restraint. Understandably, the people that we are deporting would prefer to remain in the UK and would prefer not to actually be deported or removed to their country of origin. But our whole basis and ethos is operation is to achieve that in as calm a way as possible. Our staff are selected for their interpersonal skills. Use of de-escalation techniques is a huge part of our training, and the use of force, the use of control and restraint techniques, which can mean anything from the application of handcuffs to use of approved holds under the control and restraint prison service approved methods. That's only as a last resort. In fact, last year I think control and restraint was used in about 8% of removals.
And I'm glad to hear some of those comments. I'm trying to understand how that fits with the medical justice report, outsourcing abuse, and the comments there and the records that they have there, of the report that Dame Nwalo alone did based on that, which highlights a whole series of things, on information that the committee's received from Inquest, for example, saying that the Home Office apparently warned you in 2006 the restraint techniques used by its guards potentially impeded breathing and could result in a fatality. And there was some issues about positional asphyxia. How do you fit what you've just said, which is, I think, what ought to be going on, with all of these reports suggesting that's in fact not what's going on?
The control and restraint techniques that we used are those that are developed by the prison service and approved by UKBA. The risks associated with, for example, positional asphyxia are aware they're a major part of our training. Included in our training programme is a whole week on control and restraint, and then there is refresher training every year.
We'll come on to the training a little later.
Yeah.
Dr. Huppert?
I'm sort of, most of these have a whole series of incidences which don't fit with what you're saying. But can I also ask, in the interest of time, what happens when there are problems? I'm aware of a case that was brought to my attention by a constituent of very severe brutality, alleged at least, against a deportee, and I have detailed text here and a medical legal assessment of them. And the brutality as they were being removed led to them being admitted to hospital, so I think we can accept that there was something there. Rather than talking about the details of this case, what interested me and what interested my constituent was when that she and the individual concerned tried to report this to the police as an assault, they were informed that it was not possible for the police to accept this. They would not accept criminal allegations against Group 4 members, and that UKBA would investigate it, would not allow the police to get involved, treat it as criminal assault. Is that accurate, or were UKBA and the Home Office getting this wrong?
I'm quite shocked by that, to be honest. The police have powers, obviously, to investigate all allegations, yes. And indeed, sort of any incidents we report to UKBA, and where the police, it's appropriate for the police to get involved, then they're actually invited in. So I'm really quite surprised by that account.
Thank you. I'm concerned that there's one picture which is being presented by you and may well be what you see, which is things as they ought to be. And there is a different picture as to what's actually going on. And I'm concerned about that gap. We see it in the Alone report, no evidence of consideration of the proportionality of the use of handcuffs and leg restraints, both before, during and after that use of force. We see the use of force training which officers receive does refer to the legal obligations governing the use of force, However, this was not reflected in the bulk of the case papers which I examined, which fills out this idea that there's a difference between the theory and the practice. We've had a lot of comments where you deal with reports of what's being used. You rely heavily on people reporting which holds they use, which restraints they use, how often, reporting on the use of force if there are injuries and similar examples. I know the case I mentioned briefly earlier, and I will send you the details of that.
Please do, yes.
But I do have a track record of email exchanges with the Professional Standards Unit at the UKBA confirming it won't go to the police, but that it was reported. Do you share my concern that would be unlikely that somebody working for you who had made a mistake, who had overstepped their mark, do you think it's unlikely that they would report that to you? And how would you monitor that and check that there isn't an undercurrent of things happening, which you, I'm sure, would not approve of, which is nonetheless happening?
Okay.
When the deportee is being moved from the centre, for example, and onto the vehicle, that is all covered by CCTV and audio. Every time we have a complaint or we have some concern over a report that's coming over control and restraint, the CCTV is automatically reviewed. That's retained by us for the CCTV. It was pointed out by Dame Erlone that that should be kept for 3 months, and we do that now. And so we can actually review CCTV of any complaint that's made during the move.
And do you find discrepancies when you review that?
Very occasionally we will, and that might involve just retraining. It might not be necessarily a serious, it might just be the technique used was not fully correct. But very rarely is there any serious, if at all, any serious misuse of control and restraint.
I might add to that. Obviously, a number of deportations take place with charter flights, and in those occasions there's always a representative of UKBA on board. There are medics on board, so there is, if you like, sort of that sort of added assurance relative to charter flights.
Mr Banks, Mr Small, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for your initial email to this committee following the events of the last 20 days. And if there's any further information, please write to us. And if we have any further inquiries of you, we will write to you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Order.